Hope on the Hard Road podcast, where you and your family can find community, find encouragement, and find hope for the road ahead.
Jaron was a toddler, and I would chase him around the house. Chase, as all toddlers love. And I would intentionally allow Jaron to kind of win, if you will. I wouldn't catch him in time. I'd let him hide, or me try to find him. Well, one day I turned the corner, we're playing tag, and I turned the corner, and Jaron was standing there with his arms out, stretched out to me, saying, "Catch me, Daddy." It was like one of those moments where I realized, he didn't want to win the game of not being caught. He wanted to be caught. He wanted to be held. He wanted to be embraced.
Before we get started today, we wanted to take a moment to let you know about some amazing events coming up.
If you're in the San Diego area, you won't want to miss Date Night on February 20th. This is an incredible event designed for caregiving couples to reconnect and enjoy a night out filled with great food, fun, and friends.
On Saturday, March 14th from 10 to 2, we have our Spring Fam Fest located at the picturesque Walnut Grove Park. Families, you won't want to miss this sensory-friendly and accessible event filled with lots of fun games and activities like adaptive Easter egg hunts, photo opportunities, yummy foods, and more.
Ladies, you won't want to miss Mom's Day Out 2026 in beautiful San Diego, California. This life-giving conference is uniquely designed for moms of children with special needs and the circle of women supporting them. It is your invitation to step away from the demands of caregiving, breathe deeply, and be reminded that you are not alone. Set along the breathtaking San Diego Bay at Liberty Station, you'll enjoy peaceful waterfront views, space to breathe, and a community of women who truly understand your journey. This is more than a conference. It's a reset for body, mind, and spirit. Ladies, you truly don't want to miss this incredible conference with inspirational keynote speaker, Misty Coy Snyder, creator of Happiness is Down Syndrome, and our fabulous breakout speakers, Jen Jones, author of The Significant Life, Angela O'Brien, host of the Especially Organized podcast, and Kara Riska, host of the Special Needs Mom podcast, as well as our phenomenal MC, Kara Lee, founder of the Well Community for Women. Plus amazing amenities and delicious meals, unhurried time for connection, rest, and renewal, and lots of fun activities. And yes, a swag bag you're going to love. So bring your circle of friends, your bestie, a sister, or another mom walking this road with you, and come experience everything Mom's Day Out 2026 has to offer. Spots are limited. Register now and take a moment to breathe with us. One-day tickets are available as well as full weekend conference tickets.
To register, simply go to hopeonthehardroad.org or our social media to find the link.
We hope to see you there. Hey everybody, thanks for joining us. Today we begin our medical family series, and you are about to be inspired by one family's story.
Steve and Melissa Bundy have been married for 33 years and have 2 adult sons. Their oldest son, Caleb, was born with a rare chromosome deletion and subsequent multiple medical diagnoses.
Steve is the Senior Vice President of International Ministries at Joni and Friends International Disability Center and has been on staff for the past 18 years. And Melissa is a part-time wound care home health nurse. This incredible couple sat down with us to share their story, a courageous story where heartache is met with hope.
Let's listen in to our conversation with Steve and Melissa.
So we married in 92 and spent our first 2 anniversaries overseas as missionaries. And that was our heart, our passion. And after Caleb was born, we ended up recognizing that life is going to look very different for us. Mm-hmm. And so long-term mission wasn't necessarily going to be our future any longer. And we recognized that we knew God still had a calling in our lives. It was just going to look very different. And that eventually led to us being in Southern California, where we live now. Melissa having a career in nursing, myself in ministry, now at Joni and Friends International Disability Center. And we have 2 sons. We have our oldest son, Caleb, 26 years old, who's our special needs boy. So he was our guide, born with multiple disabilities. And then we have a wonderful 22-year-old son. His name is Jaron. He lives in Nashville, Tennessee, just graduated from music college at Belmont University, and is a music producer. And we're just so proud of him.
Those early years after diagnosis can be pretty tumultuous. Take us back. What was that like for you guys?
It definitely was a reality check that life is going to be very different. So when Caleb was born, we knew something wasn't quite right. We didn't understand all the diagnoses, but we knew that he had some asymmetries about him. Something wasn't quite right. And then over the months, we began to get the diagnosis of a chromosome deletion, of his chromosome, partial deletion of his chromosome number 2. We recognized as we worked with developmental specialists that he most likely was going to have intellectual disabilities. Later, he would be diagnosed with pretty severe autism. And he had a really severe hypotonia. He couldn't walk, couldn't sit up, didn't walk till the age of 6. And it was later, closer to age 12, when geneticists had actually science had caught up with the signs of his genetic deletion. And they informed us that he had a rare muscular dystrophy, which is why he had such low hypotonia. A lot of that unfolded in time, but early on, we handled it very differently. I had a little bit more of a charismatic persuasion in my theological distinctives. And so for me, my world was rocked because this was God not having favor on us. And, those around us in our community was indicating that, maybe there had been sin or Satan had stolen our son's health, and so for me, it was a time of real searching and almost like really a crisis of faith.
Yeah.
For Melissa, she has that medical background as a nurse. So she poured herself into research and finding out everything she needed to know for what's going to, help her son in his life.
I reached out into the world of, learning different parts of chromosome deletion. What is that? And there are actual organizations out there. And I even joined a board of one in the United States called CDO, Chromosome Deletion Outreach. There's another one named Unique that is based in England, in the UK. And I just learned all that I could. And I just focused on what can we do for him now? How can we love him? How do we get his therapy started at 6 months. They knew that some things were happening. We didn't get the full diagnosis of the chromosome until 10 months. Yeah. But we were already starting the ball rolling at 6 months, I believe. And I didn't have the same theological background. I just was like, okay, something happened in the way we're formed. This is a fallen world. God has not left us. God loves us. God loves Caleb. God has a plan. And we just have to discover that, jump in, and for you.
Yeah, I think also just in being the male, we want to fix things, right? Mm-hmm. So for us, and we don't like the unknown or the ambiguous. We want things to be clear. We want to fix the problem, so to speak. With Caleb, and very frustrating as a male, as a father, especially as a first-time father and mother, having this son who is broken, if you will. I couldn't fix him. And so for me, it really became a significant challenge for me personally, and both as a parent, as a husband, and as a believer, follower of Christ.
Can you talk about your younger son and how that all kind of worked out, making sure that he's involved and not all the needs, resources, and attention go to the one with special needs?
Part of the healing process of moving from sort of not understanding who God was actually through Caleb, in learning that unconditional love of God and gaining that perspective that, in our lives, we have our own brokenness, if you will, in that sense, and that God has fully accept us and include us as his children in the blood of Christ. And it was really through an understanding of learning to love and accept Caleb for who God created him to be, and that God, as Melissa said earlier, had a plan and a purpose for him. It's not sin, it's not lack of faith, but it's God doing his work. Really became a healing kind of balm, if you will, for myself, and I think for Melissa as well. Just understanding the love of God. We were just thrilled to death to have this boy, this other son. And I think for a lot of the journey with Jaron, we have sort of a season where we're trying to incorporate Caleb into everything that Jaron does. And I think every parent with a special needs child probably goes through these different times where we really want that child to be included in everything, including the siblings' activities and so forth.
Yeah.
Because I think for us, there came a point, probably when Jaron was in junior high, where we realized, Jared needed to be his own person. He needed to be Jared and not Caleb's brother. And so for us, Jared was the younger brother, but he was sort of the younger, older brother.
Oh, yeah.
And so despite our efforts, by default, he was just involved in the daily activities of caring for Caleb, which sometimes put a larger burden on him than it really should have for a young boy. So for us, we intentionally began to make it a clear priority that Jared needs his own life, right? His own friends, his own sports and activities. And he needs mom and dad to recognize that and support that outside of all of Caleb's needs. And so we just really had to learn how to do that very intentionally as parents and focus on Jared's needs specifically. So in a book that I helped co-author called Another Kind of Courage for Dads, in there I wrote a chapter on siblings, and I tell the story of when Jared was a toddler and I would chase him around the house. Chase, as all toddlers love. And I would intentionally allow Jared to kind of win, if you will. I wouldn't catch him in time. I'd let him hide or me try to find him. Well, one day I turned the corner, we're playing tag, and I turned the corner and Jared was standing there with his arms out, stretched out to me, saying, "Catch me, Daddy." It was like one of those moments where I realized, he didn't want to win the game of not being caught. He wanted to be caught. He wanted to be held. He wanted to be embraced. And I use that acronym TAG because no matter what age, the children want to be caught by the parents. They want to be embraced. They want to be held. It doesn't matter the age. And so the TAG tag, I talk about time, attention, and guidance. And that sibling of the special needs child, they need just as much time, attention, and guidance from us as parents as that special needs child. And it's really important to understand that for their health, for their growth, their development.
And not allow that all the different therapies and special appointments and all those things to really overshadow what they need to discover in their lives and enjoy in their lives. And there came a point where we had to cut back on what we were doing for Caleb, but it didn't feel like, it was almost like Caleb was ready too, and it was like, okay, this is not working. And this is not working for Jaron, so therefore it's working for all of us as a family. So I feel like I have seen this in certain families where it does seem like, and just in general, typical kids, where it's like they run the show, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of what I see these days is it's kind of like, okay, how are we going to allow our child to just blossom? We're just going to let them run free and like whatever they want. And this is what, they're going to dictate basically how the families run. And honestly, Caleb was doing that in our life. And we came to a recognition of that. And I think Jaron appreciated it. We weren't perfect after that. And either we're like steps back and we realized, oh, okay, yeah. Again, we need to make sure Jaron has his space and his attention, our attention.
Oh, so good.
Well, I like how I don't think I've heard that from another couple, how you actually decided everything working together as a family, not two individuals, but how they pieced together is how the decision-making was done. That's a powerful thing.
Yeah.
I can even say, well, this may not sound so great in some ways, but it's really true in our family. We love Joni and Friends camps, and we're going to tell people, whenever you can go to a family retreat, it's life-changing. It's amazing for families.
Yeah.
And it was for ours for a very short time, but then it wasn't. And it really wasn't. There was a point where I recognized, okay, this is putting too much strain on Jaron and in our family as a whole. Yeah. So we found other ways to be a blessing and that blessed each of us, so that's an example.
This is our series for medical families that are experiencing medical complexity. There is just often so many medical emergencies and hospitalizations. How have you guys walked through that over the years? What would be some advice you'd love to share with families that are walking that journey right now, as you guys have done?
Yeah, we have had to at an early age with Caleb. We recognized because of his low tone that meant he had to have some surgeries, and they were not as extensive. To be honest with you, when I was thinking about this, we didn't have severe life-saving surgeries that needed to take place, but it was more like a slow burn. Like it just was constant. So for Caleb, the medical appointments and specialists that he had to see were multiple. He had to have gastroenterology for sure, because he had what needed to be was a Nissen fundoplication due to the severe GERD, the GERD that you get from the reflux because of the lack of tone. He had to have that done 3 times in his life. And then he had multiple hernia surgeries as well for the same reason. But, thankfully, there were multiple other things that happened regarding orthopedics. But there weren't, huge, like, he was in the hospital for weeks and ends. It was more the continual. So for us, balancing that again, to be honest with you, I dealt with the majority of that at the beginning. Steve was really having to focus in on work. I was not working. So when our boys were really young, I ended up taking Caleb to most of his specialty appointments, and they were far. So at one point, I lived in Pasadena, and we would have to drive to Glendale and LA and different parts in between, Downey, and it's a drive, and there's traffic. And I remember somebody came to visit us from where we had lived before, and they were like, how do you do this? There's like 5 lanes. I'm like, you just do, get it done. But it's stressful. And it was definitely stressful with Jaron. So how do we do it? Obviously, we use the resources that were available to us from the state, from the regional center, in getting respite. So as much as possible, I would try to find, and we didn't know. It was parents that told us. We did not know about the resources respite one until, I don't know how old Caleb and Jared were when we found out, but it was not at the beginning. We did have regional services at the beginning, but learning the respite and having that help, that was huge, because I would try to make sure, Jared didn't have to go to everything. And, so handling that kind of stress. And we took turns. We tag teamed it. So when he was in the hospital and had to be there for several days, we had to take turns. But the majority of how we got through it, of course, is through prayer and support. You have to have a support network and family. And something I was going to say earlier, we have amazing parents and siblings. We love our family. They're not near us. And except for the birth of our 2 boys, my parents were not able to help. My sister did help for one time when his father passed, took care of Caleb. That was a huge, huge help. Caleb was only 5 at the time. Yeah. But other than that, we didn't have family. Some people have family down the street. They've got a mom and a dad or, sibling, whoever. We did not have that. So respite became family to us in a lot of ways. We had amazing gals throughout the year, and then some gentlemen as Caleb got older that just were lifelines for us.
One of the things we were talking about also is just keeping expectations realistic. When you have that kind of disruption, family life, when everything's going well, is hard enough, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then when you add disability, the dynamics change considerably. When you add medical and fragile cases as well, it just turns everything upside down. And so there's no norm, right? And there's no guidebook for this. There's no playbook. And so I think for us, we were talking earlier, so much of it is about keeping our expectations, realistic. Mm-hmm. What's this week or these 2 weeks going to look like? And then having a lot of grace for one another and recognizing, hey, people, we're going to be tired. We're going to, we're asking people to juggle Jared's schedule while we're at the hospital with Caleb. And so taking it one day at a time and not looking out too far into the future, and just taking it one day at a time with that grace that God gives every day. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's really critical when you're trying to go up and through these crises, up and downs, and the ebbs and flows of emotions. Just try to maintain as much consistency as you can while being realistic, giving grace for one another.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that because, so much unmet expectations can really be discouraging. And, just showing up is winning. And, so much for our families and celebrating the little things. And I know that's really something in our own family that we've been able to see, and I think God's priority is just celebrating little things and cherish those little things.
That's right.
One of the things you guys mentioned is like how you guys really balanced your two kids and raising them and being able to share time with them. But how about your marriage? What type of things have you done to take time away from caregiving to pour into your marriage and keep that thriving? Because we know special needs families are really, there's a lot of anxiety and a lot of things against us to keep our marriages alive.
There's no doubt that families, marriages that have a special needs child disability in the mix, they're at higher risk for separation, higher risk for divorce, or just a kind of emotional distancing, right? Because you could physically be together, but one of the spouses has emotionally left, which in and of itself is very dangerous for the survival of a marriage and the health of a family. I think for us, some of the tools that we've put in our toolbox over the years is understanding how the criticality of having God at the very center. What happens very naturally, it's almost by default, when you have a child with disabilities, and especially with severe behaviors, the needs of that child become the center of the family, the center of your marriage, the center of your life. And if you're not careful, everything revolves around those needs. And we came to a point in our marriage where we recognized that Caleb was the center of everything, but God wasn't. And we're Christians or in the ministry, we love God, but the reality is entire family life revolved around Caleb. And so we had to come to a point where we intentionally said, okay, God is the center of everything, including our marriage. And so Caleb, as much as we love our son, he's one of 4 family members. All 4 family members have needs. And above that is our marriage, right? So it was Caleb, God, sharing our marriage at some level. And it needed to be God, marriage, and then our voice. And so we've done some very specific things. We're very intentional about date nights, making sure that we have carved out that time so that we can get away. And as much as possible, not talk about, Caleb's needs, really just try to focus.
No,
We weren't always successful at that.
Oh, it's so hard, isn't it?
Yeah. That was our goal. We began to have devotions together on Saturday mornings, and take walks and hikes together. And then over time, we sort of moved that to now having a devotion and prayer time together every morning that we can when I'm in town and the schedules just don't completely blow up things. But almost every morning we have a time of devotion and prayer together. And that's been real critical.
I also want to say, yes, we've made it 33 years. So that's huge. It's something that's
yeah.
But one of the things that I was thinking about is how much, like you said, to we think about each other and then what can we do together? And I feel like, honestly, Steve has done such a great job of recognizing, hey, you really like to do this. This is something you're good at, or this is something that you enjoy. This is something that I enjoy and that I am good at. Let's be sure to make time for those things too. So I just want to say that, there was a time when the kids were younger that I got to go back into singing, and I dabbled in a little bit of opera, which
you got a beautiful voice, by the way.
No. Oh, but it was fun, and it was giving me that outlet that I needed. And now I also do crafts and get together with some friends and have craft night. And for Steve, it was cycling, and he took Jaron cycling and gave Jaron the love of that. And they had a special tradition. I recently was telling one of my patients about and how they would take their bikes and drive to a certain spot, and Newbury Park. But anyway, they would go down to the beach. And so they would ride their bikes down to the beach and then play football, throw the football back and forth on the beach, ride all the way back up, which was quite a feat. And then they would go to this special place and have barbecue. And so they made a tradition of that. And I thought that was huge. And, just making sure, Steve had time to cycle. And then we decided to kind of combine it. And we started doing, when we were younger, did 5Ks together. And it was a lot of fun. That was really, and we included Jared one time and we did it together. And it was on Thanksgiving, definitely.
Right.
And I've said this before, but, you have to invest in your marriage. And that means money too. And that means having to pay. So we would have, our respite and the funds we would use for that. But sometimes we'd have to go beyond that. And then I was going to mention about Jeff and Kathy.
Go ahead.
Explain that. But honestly, one of the biggest survivals is through another couple survival method that we have. And that is they chose to tell us because they were very comfortable around Caleb and around people with disabilities because they both have PhDs in special education in the severe population. And they were both working in universities and in their community and in their church. They started their own special needs ministry for adults. But they had this desire and they came to us. They said, we know it's hard for you guys on the vacations. We want to be a part of that. We want to take Caleb to our ranch and watch him here so he can have a vacation while you guys have a vacation.
Wow.
We did that for 7 years. So we had, and it was full 5 days,
1 week a year.
handle a week, but they did at least 5 days. And then we would piggyback a caregiver for a couple nights, right? I mean, it was survival for us.
Yeah.
So we're thankful. I know not everybody has a Jeff and Kathy in their lives, but maybe there's people out there that hear this and could say, hey, I could help with that.
Huge blessing.
Once the kids go into school, that push until they get into school, taking a day off because that's the date where you have guaranteed care
Yeah.
is
Right.
violence. And I walk with a lot of dads and just trying to encourage that because that's where you can actually get a date. If the respite's scarce and trying to find the workers and all these things is a challenge, take that time off. You can always work more, but invest in the marriage as you're going through all those years and making it a priority.
As our children get older, we really start to need to be realistic as families. And so a part of that is that future planning that happens. And we would love for you guys to share, as you decided next steps with Caleb, what did that look like for you guys? And where are you guys at now with that?
Yeah. Caleb is 26 years old now. And when he was 24 years old, we made the difficult decision for him to transition into a group home.
Yeah.
And, it's never an easy decision for any parent and certainly wasn't for us. I don't think there's really anything that prepares you for it. I know for me, I didn't really think Caleb would probably transition to a group home till he was much older and we were much older. And it's a journey every parent has to prayerfully consider, what's right for them and what's right for their child. And so for us, COVID had been a really, really hard time.
Oh, yeah.
So Caleb, with his physical needs, inability to walk or bear weight anymore, even transitioning him to a wheelchair, from bed to wheelchair or from wheelchair to a vehicle was getting incredibly complicated for us. And that was if we're doing it together. If one of us were gone or at work, which happened obviously regularly, even during COVID, then it left one of us with those responsibilities alone. And not always even with the caregiver. So just physically, beyond the emotional impact, we were getting pretty worn down. And prayed about what does this look like for the future. We came to the conclusion that Caleb was going to better be served by a team that could care for his needs. And we're probably going to be better parents if he was surrounded by a caring team. So we did make the hard decision. And, by the grace of God, we actually had been having the conversation prior to him being 24 during COVID because COVID was so hard for us. And we did look at a number of homes and the number of homes were not right for him.
Yeah.
And so it has to be the really, really perfect fit. And God opened a door down the street from us, which is a huge praise.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And it's the right home for Caleb, the right caregivers. to surround him, to support him. We have a great relationship with the owners of the home, the staff of the home. We're there several times each week. And he has really, even though he still has a lot of medical challenges, his spirits have kind of thrived being there. And some of that is, I think, because we allowed him to be an adult.
Yeah.
So he's got his own friends now and other people that are doing the daily caregiving. When we show up, we're just mom and dad.
Yeah.
And so it's been hard, but it's been an overall positive thing when we look back at it and we see what God has been doing through that.
Yeah.
I wanted to say that I was shocked. I mean, I knew it was going to be a difficult transition for us and for Caleb. I thought it would be hard for him to do this, but I was shocked how quickly he transitioned and how much he's appreciated it and how happy he is.
Wow.
And just recently, Caleb can't verbalize. Caleb cannot speak. He can only speak a couple words. And we tried multiple modalities that have not worked. Protocol to go, PEGs, apps, all different things. It because of his severe cognitive delay, those things have really not been successful. But the one thing that we have used, it's sort of like a modified PEC, and he can make choices. And then he can also say yes or no with like a high five, where what he usually does is I'll put my hand up here and I'll say, Caleb, do you want to do this? If you want to do this, tap my hand. If you want to do this, give me a high five. And he will usually just go like this. And that's the way he does more, is he goes like this on his hand. And so, but this happened multiple times. And just the other day, I asked him again, I said, Caleb, are you happy in your new home? You're not with mom and dad. You're with your other, I kind of call them his roommates, but they're not roommates. They each have their own room. They're housemates. Yeah. And I said, are you happy being here? And I said, if you're happy, give me a high five. And he looked up at me and he didn't do this. He did like, man, am I happy? And then he giggled. And I was like, wow. I mean, it was so obvious that he was, content. And also, one of the things we noticed early on was how I noticed he didn't want me to change him anymore. Caleb was completely incontinent. And we had to do all of that care. And I think one of the hardest things for him was having mom and dad do that. And now he's got all these other caregivers that do that are somewhat his age or a little bit older. And so I would come and jump in and he would be like, oh, and I'm like, oh, you don't want mom to help you in that way. You're a big boy now. And he'd be like, yeah, he does this breathing thing when he says yes too. And so anyway, we've seen definitely some positive signs. It was actually harder for us. Sometimes I'll go to visit him and he'll just cry. And Caleb cries a lot. That's something we didn't say earlier. Yeah. We talked about the medical side of things and all of the other things. One of the hardest parts was how unhappy Caleb is in general, just his affect. And I think there's so much he can't express. And he's so frustrated. He's locked inside because he can't speak. Yeah. And so Caleb cries a lot. And that was the hardest thing, I think. But seeing him now that he's not doing as much crying, but he does cry when we come. Sometimes he'll cry. And I think some of it's he's telling us, oh, I don't feel good. My back hurts. But then also some of it's like, okay, I'm good. You can go now. Because then I notice, okay, you want us to leave because he seems kind of cranky, and then we'll step out and he's calm. And so it's kind of given us, because it's really, really hard when you have a child who can't communicate.
Yeah.
I would say for me, that's the hardest part of everything. The physical side of things is one thing. Yes, it was difficult, and it's what made us make the decision because we physically couldn't do it. We had constraints in the home, but honestly, having him not be able to tell us how he feels and what's happening. And I know that's what's hardest for him.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's interesting because, like Melissa was saying, where we visit with him, we also let us know that this is his new home. Yeah. And so it's like, okay, mom and dad, I'm glad you're here. You've sort of interrupted my schedule now. So
Totally.
have some time together.
He loves
Then
schedule.
let me get back to my schedule.
Yeah.
And he lets us know that. And we enjoy that because that's more typical than our life was before, because it's similar with our other son, Jared. It's like we have our times to talk. And it's like after so long, it's like, okay, I got to go do my thing. You do your thing. We love you. Goodbye.
That once you come to the age of 22, you age out of the school district.
Yeah.
So it's really highly important that they find a day program that they can start to transition to. And you need to be looking for that when they're like 20, because they fill up, and you need to find the one that's perfect for your child, or that's the best possible scenario. And I do really feel like God led us to finding that now for Caleb, it was later because we had the whole COVID time when he was 22.
Yeah.
But then once we found that day program, he's still attending that day program, not as much as he was before, because physically it's hard for him, but he will still go for a few hours. And that's so important that he has this whole other community that can love on him, care for him, give a break to the people in the group home. That part of the package is really important to focus on.
Steve, we'd love to know, like your work with Joni and Friends, and how did that kind of mesh with your own child's disability, how that came about, and kind of where are you now with that whole organization?
Yeah, great. Thanks for asking. So I've been with Joni and Friends for 18 years now.
Wow.
And so my official title is Senior Vice President over a couple of our divisions. One is our Christian Institute on Disability, and the other is our International Ministries. And I mean, really, Caleb has been the impetus, if you will, for our calling in life and ministries. You guys can relate with Hope on the Hard Road. So much of our inspirations come from Caleb, and God brought us into a relationship with Joni Argentata many years ago after Melissa and I launched a ministry in our church, special needs families. And so there was a dynamic connection there with Joni and the team. And so she actually brought me on staff to launch our institute, which she always had a desire to do. And let me mention real quick, even before I started, actually, Melissa worked at Joni Friends.
Yeah.
In what's today's called response department. Back then it was a correspondence
department. Yeah.
Responding to parents.
Yeah.
Writing in with all
networking and giving them information. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I came on board, helped Joni launch our institute and our curriculum, which is being used around the world today. And then grew into the international area. So today I oversee all the international work we do around the world. We're in about 60 countries around the world.
Wow.
And it's been a great opportunity. So a lot of what we do internationally in Joni and Friends is the need for wheelchairs around the world is huge and significant. As we know, 1.3 billion people living with a disability on the planet. The number's pretty staggering. Out of that, over 80 million need a wheelchair and don't have access to that wheelchair. And so we take thousands of chairs a year around to developing countries, and we fit the chair to the individual. And so we give them the gift of mobility and the gift of the gospel. We have family retreats that we do all around the world. 2006, we'll have about 110 international family retreats.
International ones.
Yeah, we'll be doing.
I remember when there was like 13.
Yeah.
He's really spearheaded that. It's fun. It's blown up.
Our latest and very exciting initiative is called Joni's House. They are disability centers around the world that focus holistically on the needs of the family and the community.
Yeah.
And so we have about 14 of those locations around the world today. We launched those just about 4 years ago, and those are growing. Very, very exciting. And of course, our Beyond Suffering curriculum, that's our theological education component that teaches a biblical view of suffering and disability as well as practical ministry. And we've now had 30,000 students from all around the world go through that curriculum, and that's growing rapidly as well. We just released our second edition of that. We're very excited that that's now out and available. So yeah, that's so what I do at Joni and Friends, and it's been a wonderful 18 years.
Oh, wow. Steve, that's incredible. Beyond Suffering, by the way, was one of those books. It was actually the main book that I read as I was going through a faith crisis, trying to figure out, what did I believe? What is going on? What's the next steps here, God? And literally reached out to Joni and friends and received a whole packet full of information, including that book.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
That you're bringing that up is just beautiful.
That's awesome.
Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. That encourages me. Thank you for sharing that.
The family homes you just mentioned, or the support around the families.
At Johnny's house.
At Johnny's house, exactly.
Okay.
How does that work? What does that look like for the family?
Yeah. So Johnny's house are disability centers that we have opened around the world, and they focus on 4 critical areas of care for a family, taking a holistic approach: physical, economic, social, and spiritual. And so again, we're talking about families in developing countries where there's little to no services available, sometimes very little access to healthcare. And so we come along and we look at what are really the needs happening with that person with disability in the family. Do they need surgery? Do they need rehabilitation? Do they need therapies? Do they need medicines? What's happening physically? Because they often come to us with these needs. We look at economic. What can we do to help either the individual or family member do vocationally? What kind of training and skill sets can we give them so they can be successful in employment or even launch their own business? So we do microfinance loans.
Yeah.
So a lot of families are launching their own businesses to care for their family. Socially, that kind of speaks for itself. We do a lot of awareness training, not just in the community, but in the church as well, which also has a lot to grow in terms of welcoming and embracing people living with disabilities. And of course, spiritually, the gospel is central to everything we do. We do a lot of biblical care and ministry for these families and marriages.
You guys are just a wealth of wisdom. And so as you speak into the lives of some of our listeners, what is something that you would like to pass along, some wisdom that you've learned along the way that would probably, really help them buoy the next step?
You guys have the right word in the name of your ministry, hope on the hard road. I mean, that's the right word. Joni Argentata often says hope is the best of all things, right? Because with hope, you can face anything. And we're oftentimes families and marriages struggle the most. It's not the lack of resources, although that's real. It's not the challenges and the stress, although that's real. It's a lack of hope. It's hopelessness that enters in. And so the thing I would leave with parents and families is never lose sight of the God of hope, that he is always with you. He is always for you, that he has the best for you. He will lead you. He will guide you. You are not abandoned. You're not forsaken. I know it's hard. It's difficult. There's not a clear path for the future, but hang on to the hope and the God of that hope, because he is there based off Romans 8:28, working all things out for the good of those who love him and are called to his purposes. He has not left you. His presence is real in your situation, your circumstance. Cling to that God of hope, because he has a future for you and your child with disabilities. Your child is created in the image of God. Don't think anything different. And God loves your child and has a plan and purpose for his or her life as well.
God's there for you, but recognize God will do it through you. Ask God to allow you to be the vessel to touch your child, to help your child. And when you don't have the strength, ask God to give you his strength. Because I tried to do it on my own and that did not go well.
Good.
And I made decisions, along the way. It's just that, it's like, okay, God is working through us and he's leading and guiding us. And if we are the vessel and we empty ourselves, then he can bless our children even better than we can.
What's one thing that you'd like to share with our listeners to help bring hope for the road ahead?
As significant as the need is with your child, that your family, your life, your marriage does not center around those needs, because the needs never go away. They might change in different seasons, but they're always there. But make sure that Christ is the absolute center of your home, the absolute center of your marriage. Everything else will contribute and help some, but Christ is the anchor for all things. And so my encouragement is to really anchor to Christ and keep him front and center personally in your marriage and your family. And that will help you find that hope on the hard road.
I know that this is going to encourage many, many families out there that are experiencing what you guys have experienced. And you guys have definitely brought hope to today's episode. So
I appreciate you guys coming on.
check out the show notes to find resources and contact information for today's episode.
Yeah, and if you like the podcast, please share it with others and be sure to follow us so you won't miss an episode.
We love to hear from our listeners, so leave us a comment or rating and connect with us on social media or on our website at hopeonthehardroad.org.